How do you get started with Xcode debugging? In this video, we're going to learn about different keyboard shortcuts that are going to make you more productive with the debugger. So let's talk about debugging shortcuts. I'm going to talk about some keyboard shortcuts around showing and interacting with the debugger, and then I'm going to show you some debugging line by line. Let's dive right into it. Hey, it's Paul Soltz. Thank you for watching this video. If you want to get access to all the keyboard shortcuts that I talk about this, as well as the other related videos, click the link down below and you can get access to it. So I've got this layout here. It's got, I think, 53 or so shortcuts on it. I've broken it up into 4 different videos. You can get access to all of those shortcuts in one PDF that you can print out and put on your wall. Thanks for watching, and I'll jump right into the content. So let's learn about debugging keyboard shortcuts. So for the Xcode Debugger, the first keyboard shortcut that you're going to want to know is going to be to hide and show the debug area. That's going to be Shift Command Y. So that will hide and show this bottom panel. Just like Command 1 will take you right to the project navigator, and Command 0 will hide and show that. These different keyboard shortcuts allow you to reclaim space or get distracting views off the screen. So that's the debug area. And when we have a breakpoint that we've hit, so in this case, changing the amount of coffee or changing the current recipe, switching between different coffee modes over on the right, will trigger one of these breakpoints that I have set. So clicking in this sidebar activates a breakpoint. And then once we hit those breakpoints, sometimes we want to interact with the application. And you can keep your hands on the keyboard if you do this keyboard shortcut, which is going to be Shift Command C. Now you just have to be careful because sometimes this doesn't work if your simulator has taken focus. So just be mindful of if you're still in Xcode or if you're in the simulator, because sometimes you're in the simulator. So for this, we can now start inspecting things. So we can use the P or PO commands to inspect maybe the coffee recipe. So here we can start doing some different commands. We can sort of see what the state of things are. And sometimes this information is useful. Honestly, I don't know what to expect sometimes from some of these things. Oh, that's because this is a core data object or a Swift data object now. So there's a lot more complexity to it. If I do PO recipe, I think we'll see a different presentation. Interesting. Cool. So that allows you to sort of inspect these different things. There are different commands that you can write down here. I don't know if it's help. Yeah, help will give you all of the keyboard shortcuts. There's a ton more commands that you can learn that keep you focused on debugging and doing different things down here. So there's a lot to learn when working with the console. So that's activating the console. Let's learn about toggling breakpoints. Sometimes you just want to get the app running and you don't care about these breakpoints anymore. And so that's similar to the Shift Command Y. So Shift Command Y hides and shows the debug panel down here. We can disable breakpoints with just Command Y. So Command Y will disable and enable breakpoints. Now that makes a small change on the UI. What you're going to notice is that this is no longer blue and this is no longer blue. So if I'll do that again, Command Y, you see that they become blue. That's the only indication that I see when this happens. And so what that means is when we disable them, they're not going to be impacted once we resume. So if we hit that resume button, this is the debug panel area. These are where all the buttons are that we're learning the keyboard shortcuts for. So we learned about activating the console and toggling breakpoints. And next, we're going to get into actually stepping through our code. So if I run this one more time, I've got some breakpoints. I can start using the app. When we disable breakpoints, they will no longer trigger. So switching the recipe doesn't trigger them, and bringing up this menu doesn't trigger any breakpoints because I've disabled it. But if we enable it again and we interact with any of these, you'll see that the app stops and we can hit continue to continue using it. We can switch to this view and we can see, okay, we're going to hit a breakpoint a number of times because I have a whole slew of different sliders over here. So this is the water unit slider. This is the water coffee ratio slider. There's just a bunch of different views that are triggering all these breakpoints. By toggling the breakpoints and hitting continue, we can skip all of that and get the app functioning again. Okay, so those are the 3 starting keyboard shortcuts that I would recommend. The first one is definitely the most important. This gives you screen space when you have a limited size screen. It's super helpful. The second one allows you to dig into something if you do have a breakpoint. So if you do the Shift Command C, that puts your focus down here without having to use your mouse. And then toggling breakpoints allows you to turn on and off the breakpoints so that you can focus on the code and not getting stuck in all of the details. All right. So what does debugging line by line look like? Let's look at some keyboard shortcuts that are going to help you with that. Continue and pause is a keyboard shortcut that's going to really help you. So we have the Shift Command Y. It's very similar for hiding and showing the bottom. If you just move that left pinky finger over, you can hit the Control Command Y. And this allows you to either pause the app like I have done now or resume it like I have done now. And that's going to allow us to sort of continue. So let's hit a breakpoint. We've got the breakpoints enabled. We are going to trigger one by clicking on a different recipe. And I have a breakpoint in this method of Hario button press. So Hario button pressed is a IB action method that is hooked up to the button. This is using UIKit, and we are in the change current recipe function. That's what we're seeing on the stack frame. So we have these 2 elements on the stack frame, and we have our breakpoint right here. So if we continue with this, the Control Command Y is going to take us to the next line of code. And if there's no more breakpoints hit, then the whole app will resume. And that's exactly what happens. We can start interacting, and then we can hit a different breakpoint. And so if I were to continue from this breakpoint, so this is a drag gesture that I have hooked up on this component here, we're going to see that this gets hit multiple times because there's multiple drag events. So we will have to continue multiple times. So Control Command Y, and we hit it again. Control Command Y, we hit it again. Control Command Y, we hit it again, and now we have resumed. So that was 3 or so drag events that occurred and allowed us to shift this up. If we were to turn off breakpoints with Command Y and then drag, you will see that we can drag up and down. So turn on breakpoints with Command Y, we drag up and down. It's going to hit those breakpoints and give us some drag events. All right, so continue is super useful. Now, let's say you want to see how some of this logic is working. That's where step over, step into, and step out are all beneficial. So let's first start with step over. This is going to be F16. Now, I've got an Apple keyboard here that I use, and you can see that there's a bunch of special keys along the top for those F keys. And in order to trigger those, we need to use the function key. And I just got a new keyboard. I haven't hooked it up yet because I think I have to update to make it functional. But that one doesn't actually list the function key anymore. It's just I think it's just the global key. I don't know. All right, so I got this new keyboard, and what you'll see in this bottom corner is that it no longer says function down here, but you still have your F6 and F7 and F8 keys, but to activate them, you're going to need to press that button. And without Sequoia or something like that, I don't think this new keyboard actually works properly on my Mac. So I haven't been using it. All right, so stepping over, super useful. So let's see where we're at. I've got a breakpoint here, so we can see the breakpoint right here. And if we step over with function F6, so I have to use 2 hands. It's too far for me to really reach with a single hand. So function F6 is going to allow me to step over. And if we don't have focus down below, what we can do is that other keyboard shortcut that we learned, which is to activate the console, that is going to be Shift Command C. And we should be able to type something like P horizontal movement, see what kind of horizontal movement we have. And we should be able to type P vertical movement and see what that looks like. And once we do that, if we scroll down, I don't know why we're not at the bottom, we can see this is what the end result is. If we want, it looks like there is no movement in this last frame, so this must be just as my touches are releasing. So not super exciting. We can step over this one more time. And we're just stepping through the code. So stepping over just allows you to go line by line through your code, which is pretty straightforward. Sometimes you want to drill into something. So let's say we're on this method, we want to drill into the update coffee weight. This is where the step into becomes useful. So we can use F7, function F7 to step into, and then we can just continue to step over with F6, and then function F6 to here. We're now calculating the water weight. So we could step into with the F7 key, so function F7, and that will drive us in here. Now, this is where it gets a little bit gnarly now that we have macros in Swift. What you're going to see is this is a Swift data model object. And so we're now seeing the getter and the setter, and we're inside the getter. So it's registering access to the coffee weight, and then it is going to return the coffee weight. That's what we're seeing here. So that was diving into this line of code. If we step into again, what it's going to do is it's going to dive into the water to coffee ratio. So if we look back where we were, we said we wanted to step into this. What we really wanted to do was step into this function, but we've stepped into this property, and now we're stepping into this water to coffee ratio property. And so here again, we see the access to it, and I'll just hide that so we can see this real quick. This is doing the same type of thing. We're just notifying that we are accessing this property, and then we are getting the value back, and then we're back here. Now, if I want to actually step into the method, I have to do it one more time. So step into, and we don't see it. Interesting. Oh, wait, no, I lie. It's right down below. So now we've switched to the call of this function, which is calculate water weight. And if we step over and over, it will calculate the water weight and we'll have a new value. It would have been interesting to actually look at if I had activated the console. So let's just activate the console now with Control-Shift-C. And once we do that, we can P and type self.coffee weight to see what that is. And then we can see that that matches what we see in the UI. And then we should be able to print out this value, but the value hasn't returned yet. So if I tried to do this, it may or may not be accurate. Because we haven't potentially finished executing this. If it had changed because I had moved this slider, and then if we had done this again, we might see a different value. But if there's no vertical movement, then this value is not going to be changing at all. Okay, so that's about stepping into. I don't know if there's a way to avoid the property step into, because if you were to step over this, if we were to try this again, and if I step over and over, I am now past this line of code. So if I want to step into, we're just going to step to the next line and we're outside of that function. So that's one of the peculiar things about properties and property wrappers is that you have to drill through them in order to get to some of the function calls. And you can set, well, we could set a breakpoint here. Let's see if we can set, will it let me? There's a thing called a column breakpoint, but I'm not, here's a column breakpoint. let's see what happens here. So let's continue, continue, continue. And if I step into it from here, that does seem to bypass maybe the accesses to those values. So that might be a workaround of getting through it. Let's try it one more time. So if I were to, let's bring up the keyboard shortcut so that we can run through this again. So we're practicing the step over and the step into. If I were to step over with F6, and let's activate Xcode, F6, and now I want to step into this without stepping into those methods. I would step into, and that's stepping into, and into. And now if I do step into, we go into the method and we're good to go. So that step into, there's always more to learn, but that's a, sort of a beginning stage. And doing these column breakpoints, you can disable them in line, so they're right here, or you can see all of your breakpoints right here, and we can see which one this is. So this is this bottom one. So that's our step into. And the other thing that we can do is, so depending on where we are, so where are we? We're down in here. Sometimes you want to jump out of the action, and that's what the step out keyboard shortcut is for. So if we do function F8, that's going to step us out of a function call stack. So if we're looking at our call stack, we are in the update coffee weight. The call above this is the handle coffee pan gesture. So if I'm in this function and I've got this active, if I do this is function F8, that will step us out, and we're back in the handle coffee pan gesture. If I step out again, we're into some code that we don't own, and that will then just end the execution. So that is the step out. And then the last one I want to show is if let's go into here. We are in the update views method. This is a setter value, and our next keyboard shortcut is continue to current line. So if I'm using Vim mode to go down, let's say, to this if statement, we could do Control-Command-C. This is similar to activating the console, except we're using Control instead of Shift. This will jump to that current line of code. It will continue execution there. If I want to move down a little bit more, I can do this. And then if I want to jump back into the debug area, so Control, Shift, sorry, not Control, Command, Shift, Command, C. This is a mouthful. Now I'm down below, and I can do something like P value to print out what the current value is. I can P the previous value to see what that was. And we can see that we're just setting, I think, some initial state here. All right, so that's continue to current line. And when we're done here, how do we stop? How do we continue making everything work again? Well, we can do the continue. So that would be Control-Command-Y. We'll continue. You'll notice that we hit the breakpoint again because there's multiple elements. So I have to use this multiple times to get through them. If you're done with breakpoints, you could just disable them completely, and that would just be Command-Y to turn on and off those breakpoints. And then your next continue with the Control-Command-Y will then allow you to bypass everything. Okay, so those are some of the keyboard shortcuts for working with the debugger as you're going line by line. Control-Command-Y will allow you to continue past a breakpoint, but if you hit it multiple times, you're going to see it multiple times. And that's where Command-Y will allow you to turn off breakpoints so that you can just bypass stuff, get to where you need to be, and start inspecting that way. F6, F7, and F8 are going to be your continue, step into, and step out of for the different stack frames. And then continue to current line allows you to adjust the cursor using Vim mode or your mouse by selecting where you want to go and then continuing to that point. So it's just another way of navigating around the debugger. Okay, so those are some keyboard shortcuts. You learned how to activate and hide the debug area. You learned how to activate the console down below so that you can type your debugger commands, as well as toggling the breakpoints on and off with the Command Y key. I think all of these keyboard shortcuts are really useful. It takes time to learn them. You might just be using the buttons down here, and that's fine, but you could be a lot faster and more productive if you are using the keyboard shortcuts to step line by line when you need to use the debugger and to activate the console so that you can type in the bottom console, keeping your fingers on the keyboard. Thanks for watching. If this was helpful or if you learned something from one of these keyboard shortcuts, let me know down below which one was eye-opening for you. And if there's other things that you want to learn about Xcode or productivity, let me know in the comments down below. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next video, which will probably be some kind of UI type video. Thanks for watching. I'll see you later.